I'm George Cates. I'm currently at JPS. I'm the Director for Facilities Management, Corporate Security and Disaster Planning. We get ready for a hurricane by what I would call meticulous planning for the onset of the season. And in terms of our planning, we look at our infrastructure, our people, our inventory, and our equipment.
My name is Rick Case and I'm the Director of Engineering. I also have the responsibility as Director of System Restoration. Typically our preparation is ongoing. We ramp up at certain points and of course ramp down at certain points. But usually on the 1st of December, which is immediately following the hurricane season itself, we start looking at our lessons learned, what went right, what went wrong, what we can do differently, and we incorporate those things into our forward planning.
We have a very comprehensive plan that we have developed over many years. A plan that I would still say it's work in progress, because each year, based on lessons learned, we will still try to tweak and to improve on it.
We monitor and track the approach of the storm in real time. Now, the storm will have an effect on the power system itself. And what typically happens is that we start seeing, and customers will start seeing the light flicking on and off, and it happens, incessantly, it just keeps going. But that phenomena really it destabilizes the grid itself, right? And typically what happens is that it's almost like the grid is begging to be shut down. So in order to protect our equipment, to protect our people, and to minimize damage that can cause due to the hurricane, because you can imagine if you have an energized system and it's impacted by the hurricane, it's more likely to be damaged than a de-energized system. So we have various steps that we take to de-energize the grid depending on the intensity of it. It typically is a last resort, and we basically advise the president based on what we're seeing.
Hi, I'm Winsome Callum and I'm Director for Communications at JPS. I usually manage the communication around a hurricane before, during, and after. And there's several elements of our preparation. One, we ensure that our material is here. We have all the equipment, we have everything that we need to repair the grid if there's any damage. Secondly, we do rehabilitation of the grid. We ensure that, areas that need to be repaired, we do that ahead of. Another element of our preparation is staff, ensuring that team members are ready, trained, and also our partners, meaning our suppliers, our contractors, people who work with us during a hurricane. After a hurricane, JPS gets into action because there's nothing you can do during a hurricane in terms of ensuring that people have power. One of the things that may happen is just the management of the grid, and we may shut down the power if that becomes necessary. But after the hurricane, that's when the action starts. We have to wait on the Office of Disaster and Emergency Management to say to us, it's all clear to send people out. Once we get the all clear, our first responsibility is to do damage assessment. We cannot start restoring power until we have done damage assessment. So the preparation is critical so that immediately after the hurricane we can go out and start the restoration work. We actually just intensify our communication just to help our customers to prepare for the season. As partners, we tell customers what they need to do, and we also try to educate our customers on what JPS does, what we are responsible for. For example, once the season has started, you will notice that we start reminding persons to ensure that their trees do not go into the JPS lines, because that's a responsibility of customers to take care of the trees on your property. And the JPS also has a responsibility to take trees off our lines, the trees that grow in public spaces. We have that responsibility. So it's important for us to remind customers of their responsibilities and JPS's responsibilities when it comes to hurricanes.
If the entire country is out of power, based on our procedures, the different steps that we have to take, the earliest that we could restore the grid might be 14 days if we have a major hurricane. And a major hurricane meaning a strong category 3 or 4 which has caused significant damage to the system. Our restoration procedures guide us to restore the system based on certain criteria. So some of the criteria that we use include critical customers. Some of the critical customers include water supplies, hospitals, morgues, communication infrastructure, different things of that nature that requires power, airports, ports, and prisons. You'd be surprised that. So we basically, in our restoration procedures, go after those loads first, right? So persons who live on the way to some of those places might get power much sooner than others.
It needs to be understood that JPS cannot set a charge or make a decision to charge customers. JPS is a regulated company, and so any decision about a charge to customers has to be made by the regulator. That's the Office of Utilities Regulation. But to answer your question more directly, it is not likely that customers will see an extra charge after a hurricane. That's because there is a self-insurance fund, and that fund is what is used to restore the systems after a hurricane. It's called a self-insurance fund. So each year there is money put aside on an ongoing basis just in case. You know, you put some money aside, there's a special fund, and if there's an event that the OUR determines needs money from that fund, then JPS is allowed to use money from that fund. We can't use that money unless the OUR gives us permission. If there is a hurricane, prepare to have a power outage. It's very likely. It's not always going to happen, but at least prepare for it.
If on the onset of the hurricane, you start seeing your power going on and off, very often, my advice is to open your main circuit breaker or plug out all your main equipment. And the same advice would be there as well if your home is being flooded, home or business is being flooded, and the water is rising to a level very close to where the electrical outlets are or anything like that, right? Open your main breaker.
Get all your emergency supplies in place. Protect your premises, whether you need to batten down, whether you need to ensure that you remove all the hazards from around your premises.
And also make sure you have a radio. Just in case you have no Wi-Fi, you have no data, you will be able to get information on the radio, and make sure you have the batteries, of course. But the radio, we use that a lot during a hurricane to share information before, during, and after. So the radio is there. If you can't use it on your phone because you have no Wi-Fi or data, make sure you have a battery-powered radio.
Treat every line that you see as energized. So remember, electricity is not something that you can see, so you want to be very careful with approaching it.